Is the Charles Morgan Show. We have a great show for you today. We're going to review the reviewer. So let's see if we can get some people in here. We'll wait just a few minutes. We're going to talk about propaganda, false propaganda. We put out the truth. False propaganda is information that you arrange just to go along with what you want to present, regardless of the facts and the truth. And we're going to put out, good morning, TINGZ. We're going to put out truth, not propaganda that just goes along with our agenda, because we have no agenda. We have the truth. Unlike a lot of the reviewers on police body cams and a lot of information that's put out on TV and the news, we're gonna put out the truth. We're truth tellers. So today we're gonna do another review. The reviewer. We're gonna talk about the civil rights attorney that I actually agree with him a lot, but he has a agenda and kind of a vendetta against police, and loves to show body cam and arrange it out of order to mislead people sometimes about some things. So we're going to show a specific video where a police officer was terminated and fired, and the video evidence shows that the officer did nothing wrong. So come on board, Charles Van Morgan Show. We're going to review the reviewer. We're going to review the civil rights attorney, show you about a case that I disagree with. His propaganda is putting out agreeing with the establishment and taking a police officer off the street that did a great job, and the civil rights attorney demolishes the police officer. He was actually charged with a crime. We're gonna review the reviewer. So good morning. Good morning. Go on board. Thank you very much, Charles Van Morgan. We're going to talk about propaganda this morning, false information. And a lot of times it's not hard to figure out, but you just have to look at things for yourself. So we're going to review the reviewer this morning, and we're going to talk about a lot of things. We're going to talk about antisemitism and the false propaganda that's coming out about that. I certainly was delighted about the press conference that our president had with Netanyahu, standing side by side, them praising each other, prophetic from the Holy Scriptures. The real truth is that we need to be friends with Israel. We don't need to condone every little thing they do. No one's perfect on this corrupt planet with human beings, but we need to be a friend of the nation of Israel. There is an anti-Semitic thing going on nowadays that is so horrific and horrible that is trying to drag us back to the days of Hitler with the annihilation of the Jews. And the propaganda is accusing the Jewish people of all kinds of heinous, wicked, cruel things. That's false propaganda put out by some of the best political pundits that you could ever imagine. Some people smooth talking, Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, some of the best speakers you could ever imagine, trained from a child eloquently to lie to you about a hell of a lot. And they're splitting the conservative movement. The Charlie Kirk movement is being split all to hell by these liars that are speaking at a convention. Just spoke at them a few days ago, and we're gonna talk about that. We're gonna talk about anti-Semitism. There's some violence going on against the Jews in the world today, and it is pointing towards the end times. And these things are predicted in the Bible. We're going to talk about just the plain truth. No lies, no spin, just the truth. You know, wars are fought with more than just bullets. Sometimes the most damaging things is false information, where it portrays a story that's not true to get you to hate the enemy instead of making peace. So Charles Van Morgan Show, come on board. Thank you all so very much for joining me. We're going to review the reviewer this morning. We're going to review the civil rights attorney, and I'm going to tell you about how I disagree with him about a lot of stuff. And this one particular video where a policeman was terminated, and we're going to talk about that. The Video has just I had it saved, but it's just left the screen. Thank y'all very much for joining. Like, share, comment, and spread the message. Let me find it again. Might take me a minute to find this video. It's a video about a police officer that is accused of using excessive force and was actually terminated and fired for his use of force, which was completely erroneous because and not justified, because the policeman did nothing wrong. He was handling a felony call, and the civil rights attorney messes up the video by a timing error, by propaganda timing error, because he shows what the police officer did before he ever shows what the suspect did, and undermines what the suspect did, but shows what the police officer did. That seems very dramatic, but it's a timing propaganda error that is very dramatic and highlighting what the police officer did, minimizing what the defendant did, and praising the police department for getting rid of a police officer that risked his life for public safety out on the road, and praising a police department, and misses the issue that you won't get anywhere else. And this issue is the issue that you can get all the police officers at the bottom that you want to. You can get them all day long. That's not going to make any difference. The issue is the top of administrations that are responsible for the decisions that are untouchable. And the real issue is, if police departments want to get rid of an officer for their own illegitimate purposes, what they do is they hang out the police officer and make it seem like that they're getting rid of bad officers, but it's actually a lot of the good officers that they're getting rid of. Now, that's against the grain, that's swimming upstream, but that's the truth. A lot of police officers that are terminated because they're watching over the police department that is committing violations, not because they're bad police officers. And they use situations and frame them as if the officer did something bad, instead of the truth that the officer didn't do nothing bad. And if you look at the situation that they're framing, it's not, the officer really didn't do anything wrong. So you wonder, why did they really get rid of him? It's because maybe they were looking into the department, maybe they made a complaint against the department, and not anything to do with the reason why they actually got rid of him. And you can see that on if you look into the reasons why they got rid of the police officer. It's blatantly obvious. They get rid of police officers for reasons that are completely frivolous and wrong if you look at situations. So you have to look at behind the scenes. You don't look at the propaganda is what they're putting out. The reason that they fired him, that's false propaganda. But if you look at the reason why they fired the officer and examine it, you will see that that's not a good reason. So there must be something underneath that. And we are truth seekers, and I'll tell you a little bit about the information going out nowadays, the false information that is perpetrated every day in the news and in hearsay and in rumor. The false propaganda in this world today is so alarming. You can't really believe anything that you hear or most of what you read. The only true thing you can believe, if you want to believe something true, is read the Bible. And there's even false propaganda out about the Bible. You have to worry about the commentators who's telling you about what's going on. So we're going to look at the civil rights attorney, and we're going to look at a police officer that he is that he is bragging on that the department got rid of. And I'm going to take the opposing view and show you exactly how this civil rights attorney does it, how he frames this police officer and frames that he did something bad, when in fact he is a hero. He's doing everything he should do. And I'm going to explain to you how he does it and frames it as an officer doing something bad. So this is a little bit different take on it. And this civil rights attorney, I agree with most of the things he does, but he's got an agenda, and he sets out on that agenda. I'm agenda free. My only agenda is truth telling, telling the truth, putting out truthful propaganda. His agenda is running down cops from body cameras. Easy to do. You can look at a body camera and whatever narrative that you want to take, but I've been in their shoes. I know what goes on, and I know how they do things. The bigger issue is the propaganda of getting rid of the police officer. So let's look at this civil rights attorney and how he frames this officer and promotes getting rid of him, which is completely false. Let's look at the first issue that's really the issue going on.
Foot chase after an attempted robbery at Stop and Shop in Naugatuck, according to police. In police body cam video released on Monday, an officer can be seen approaching the suspect's car and ordering both occupants out of the vehicle. The car takes off, hitting a police cruiser while...
Okay, here's the first thing. Here's the first thing that you need to be aware of about this situation is the
driving away.
Okay, we had the vehicle boxed in, and it drove up on a grass, took off at a high rate of speed, and struck Officer Kios's cruiser. It's now heading south main towards Old.
Okay, watch how this video starts. This video starts with the officer. This video starts with what the officer is doing, his harsh language at the beginning of the video. The video starts with the civil rights attorney showing how the officer is dealing with these people. Now that's how the video starts.
You gotta listen, bro.
This is how the video starts with the officer, him telling the yeah. Now that's how the video starts, with the officer cussing somebody and telling them to shut it off or they'll die. So that is framing. That's the first thing you see. That's called framing. So he's framing it as an officer threatening to take somebody's life. Wow, no matter what happens after that, he's got to be guilty of something. Not necessarily, but you see how the civil rights attorney has an agenda because the department fired that officer. And that is totally appropriate in that circumstance. That's alarming, but what that officer just did is totally appropriate in that circumstance. It is, because he doesn't show you what should have been shown first, what took place prior to that incident. That's what he doesn't show you. So that's framing. That's a time frame, switching things around in time to make you think that is the first thing that happened. That's not the first thing that happened. That's not the first thing. So that's framing. That's a bad frame. So he's saying that's what started this whole incident. That's not what started that whole incident. That was second. There's something that happened before that. What they did to deserve that, and that officer has a right to protect himself and defend the public, which is exactly what he's doing. So that's framing. That's framing. He's framing it. Now that's interesting. That's the first thing you see that is going on in the civil rights attorney's video. But that's not what happened first. Here's what happened first. Now, he doesn't show that. Here's what happened second. Now let's watch that again, what he says here, because that's important. Now, this is how the video starts. This is how it starts. This is the video start. This is how it starts. Now, isn't this a crock? Now that's called framing. That's the first thing that happened. Anything after that, you've already got an idea that officer just threatened people's lives. How dare he do that? That's horrible. That's horrific. And the whole video is based on that's the first thing that happened. But that's not true. That's a time error. So when you switch things around in time, then you're committing a propaganda error. You're wanting people to see something that looks horrific, but you're not showing the first part. The first part that should have been shown that wasn't conspicuously by this skilled attorney who is skilled in presenting evidence to a jury and to the public in a sly way is what that police officer was dealing with and what he had a right to protect the public. He had an obligation, had a duty to do what he was doing, and he also had a duty to protect himself. Just because you're a police officer and you put on a badge doesn't mean that you go out and agree to have your life taken away from you by dangerous rogue people. That's not what you agree to. It's not. You agree that your life's going to be in danger, but you don't agree just to be a martyr. That's not appropriate. That's not right. And although there are some bad police, and when they do wrong, I call it out. In this case, you see the framing. Shut it off or die. Wow, that's pretty blatant language. He had a right to say that. You say, well, that's horrible that you say that, man. No, it's not. He had every right to say that. Look at what these people did. That's minimized. That's propaganda. That's minimized. He shows, and I counted 3 seconds of what they did. Even though it's a video, and there's a longer video, I'm sure, of what they did, but he only shows 3 seconds of what they did and shows detailed stop screen of what this officer did. And I can see nothing, absolutely nothing he did wrong. And he was charged criminally for protecting society. It's framing, it's propaganda, because his department hung him out. Now, that's the story that they won't tell you. That's the backstory, that his department hung him out. Why does his department hang him out for this? That is what I would really like to know. That's what we need to know, not this right here. This right here is nothing. There's nothing done wrong. They're using this and doing a time switch on you. Now, let's look what they did. They only showed 3 seconds, so I got to be real quick to stop it to show you the seriousness of what these people did, that he's having to threaten their lives. Maybe did they threaten civilians' lives, where they were unaware, trying to make a living? Let's look at what they did and see. So let's look at what these people did. Okay, so he hit a police car on the way out. So they are violent people, threatening people's lives, even running into a police car. And that's not even the first thing they did. So they're very dangerous people. Even having their lives threatened, they are still not going to cooperate with law enforcement. So these are dangerous people. But what did they do before? Was it a parking violation that he's threatening their lives? Now that's what that civil rights attorney would have you believe. Now you can see him hitting a police car. You can see them right there hitting a police car. And that civil rights attorney would have you believe that they're committing a parking violation. He's saying, either you stop or I'm going to kill you for your parking violation. That's what he would have you believe. That's propaganda. That's not what's going on. Let me show you what happened. He shows 3 seconds of, which is very serious, which gives the officer the right to use some serious force against these dangerous thugs. But he doesn't mention these dangerous thugs. He's picking on the cops. That's doing his job. Let's see what they did. And I'll have to stop it really quickly because he only shows 3 seconds of what these thugs did, but shows detail. So he's showing what he did. So yeah. So
it happened on October 14th during the arrest of 33-year-old Gerald Day of Waterbury. The arrest followed a brief pursuit and foot chase after an attempted robbery at Stop and Shop in Naugatuck, according to police.
Now look at this.
Police body cam video released on Monday, an officer could be seen approaching the.
Now look at this right here. Did you see that?
Out of the vehicle.
Did you see the?
Help
reduce cold symptoms by 3.
Did you see the incident where it's briefly 3 seconds? You can barely see it. You can barely see what these people did. Barely. I mean, he shows 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3 seconds of it. I couldn't even hardly stop it because he's not worried about what these thugs did. When what these criminals did is they threatened somebody's lives with guns. They committed an armed robbery. But he's minimizing that, and they did. It's on camera, and I'm sure there's a longer video of that. But he's not concerned about what the criminals did. About you're in a store, you're running a business, or maybe you're just in that store, and these people come in and stick a gun in people's face and demand their hard-earned money. That's probably for drugs or whatever they want illicit reason they want to. But this is propaganda. This is nasty propaganda because there's only 3 seconds of it shown. Only 3 seconds of this right here is the real story. Now this is not even shown first. The first part was shown after this. This is what happened first. Why doesn't he show this first? The civil rights attorney right here. Why doesn't he show this first? Because it doesn't fit his narrative as propaganda. That's what propaganda does. It takes stuff out of time, out of sequence, and messes stuff up. Now, this is what originally happened. This is the reason for the whole incident is what he only shows 3 seconds of. Now, what's this 3 seconds right here? Where you see these people, these dangerous, violent thugs coming into this store. And you can see them right there at the entrance to the door. And you can see a gun in one of them's hand. Right there, a gun in one of them's hand. Now that's what they did right there. They're coming into the store. Look at that man right there, scared to death. He doesn't show him completely. His hand's up. And these are these thugs that went in his car. They come in here and threaten this man's life and go out. And then that police officer finds him in a parking lot. And he tells them, stop or die, which is appropriate because they're threatening people's lives. So he's doing what he should be doing in this circumstance. But interestingly, this is showed second. This is second. So that's a time thing. This should have been showed first. This is very serious what they're doing. They're threatening innocent civilians' life. They're completely rogue. They're not going to obey any lives. They're not going to obey any laws. They're going to risk lives and scare people to death where they could be killed, pointing guns in people's faces. And they got 2 guns. Look, there's 1 gun there and 1 gun there. So, and here's this man got his hands up, scared to death. And there's 3 seconds of that shown. 3 seconds. And not even any audio. Not even any audio of it shown, I don't believe. But there's certainly audio of that. Now watch this.
The incident happened on October 14th during the arrest of 33-year-old Gerald Day of Waterbury. The arrest followed a brief pursuit and foot chase after an attempted robbery at Stop and Shop in Naugatuck, according to police. And police body cam.
Now you can see he's pointing that gun.
Approaching the suspect's car and ordering both out.
He's pointing that gun right at his face. Right in that man's face. But interestingly enough, what you see happening first is what the police officer did. See, that's first. That's the first thing he shows in the video. See right there? And he shows that first. Interestingly, he's showing what the officer did first. That's a propaganda thing. So you see the falsehood in that. Watch this right here. Now he's showing what the police did. Showing that guy compliant. Now showing what the police did. That's the first thing, showing the police officer, shut it off or die, showing the police officer over the top of the defendant, apologizing after the fact. Everybody apologizes after the fact. after they get arrested, and in the course of getting arrested, they get tased. I mean, but he's showing what the police officer did and minimizing, blowing that up. He slows it down, stops it, shows how many times the officer tases the man that just committed an armed robbery, and shows what they did, 3 seconds. And what they did is horrific. They pointed a gun in civilian's face. You can see the man with his hands up, scaring him to death. So that's a time frame. They show that first. Now, then after they get done showing what the officer did and explain to you why he's so very wrong, and they show you 3 seconds.
The incident happened on October 14th during the arrest.
They show you 3 seconds of what the police officer, of what the defendants did. Now watch this. There they come in the store. Now look at that gun right there. Look at this guy right here. And that is second. That is second in the incident that happened. Now let's go further here. And they're gonna show you there's a pursuit. And there's a pursuit. It's called Weathers.
Kiosk then deploys his taser, dropping Day to the ground.
Right. Well,
the
good.
officer ordered Day to roll onto his stomach. When Day did not comply, Kiosk electrified the taser again. He did so one more time after asking the suspect to put both hands on his back.
Done, sir. I'm done. Put your hands on my back now. Sorry. I'm sorry. John, you still got one in the car.
Okay, his hands still aren't behind his back.
I'm sorry. I don't know what the fuck happened.
As long as it's...
Put your hands. You're getting another ride. You're getting another taser. Put your hands on your back.
His hands aren't behind his back.
Put your... All right, you're getting another ride. Put your hand behind your...
Yeah. His hands are not behind his back. He's got every reason to use a taser.
Shut the fuck up.
Now, he has no obligation to be nice to this defendant.
Turn the larceny to felony.
Now,
Shut the fuck up. Shut up. Stop talking.
he never tases him
Sorry. Here, what is it?
after...
I'm sorry.
He never tases him after he never tases him after he has got handcuffs on him. There's no tasing after he's got his handcuffs on him. So you can see the propaganda in this. The first part of the video starts out with a police officer getting out of the car, threatening to take somebody's life. Anything after that, you're going to say, well, the officer did wrong. No, he didn't. He absolutely did nothing wrong. Now, the officer was fired and charged criminally because they say that he used excessive force because he used the taser on the suspect. And force is a continuum depending on the circumstance of the crime. And when you have armed robbers, people that are threatening to take people's lives, and they kill people in armed robberies all across this nation, almost on a daily basis, people are killed in armed robberies where people are trying to steal money from people. And when you're a police officer, in apprehending these people, you can't play with these people. They will kill the civilians, and they do every day. They kill you. This man, although he's apologetic at the scene, he stuck a gun in somebody's face just a few hours before that. That's serious. That doesn't mean that you can mistreat him. And this man wasn't mistreated. He was never tased after he was handcuffed. It doesn't mention that. He claims that he tased him after he was not a threat. That is not true. As long as somebody's hands are visible, they can, as long as they're not necessarily visible, as long as they can move their hands, they are still dangerous to anybody. They can pull a gun out of their waistband. Just because somebody's on the ground doesn't mean they're dangerous. So he was still a serious threat. And it doesn't matter what he's saying. He wasn't following verbal commands to put his hands behind his back. That's an easy verbal command that he never followed. So this officer was terminated from his position after the chief of police watched that video and determined that he used excessive force by violating department policy in tasering him when they construed that it was unnecessary. And unnecessary in use of force has to be way over bounds that is so very obvious that in the law that it is easy to see. You don't measure excessive force with officers, and courts don't, under one punch too many or two punches too many. It has to be several. It has to be way over bounds, because when officers are apprehending dangerous, violent people, we're not looking at every single punch, and we're giving them the leeway to go a pretty far extent to control dangerous, violent people. Now, you can't just continue to beat on a compliant subject, similar to what happened in Memphis. But if you punch somebody 3 times more than what somebody could have to get them under control, that's probably not going to be excessive force. You don't count punches. It has to be an extreme level of excessive violence before there's excessive force involved. And tasering somebody that refuses to put their hands behind your back is not excessive force, not even anywhere close to it. Now, had he tased him after his handcuffs were behind him, then you start looking at excessive force, because unless, of course, he could hit you with his feet. There could be circumstances where you could tase somebody that is handcuffed, depending on the circumstances. They could be trying to tase you. But under this circumstance, this man fled from the scene. They had a wreck. He jumped out and ran, and then the officer chased him down, tased him because he was still on his feet, refused to lay down, and then when he was laying down, he refused to put his hands behind his back, so he tased him again. Now, he could have had a weapon. They had a weapon in the incident. But you see the propaganda of this civil rights attorney who is trying to present the picture that the officer used excessive force, and he was even charged criminally. And I wasn't able to determine, as Officer Kios with the Nagasaki Police Department in Northeast United States, but that's what separates this channel away from a lot of licensed lawyers. He's a licensed lawyer. Is he's got an agenda. He's a civil rights attorney, and civil rights attorneys get a lot of money, a lot of dough to review body cameras and get money off of you. That officer doesn't pay for that. He's lost his job. He pays for it in financial loss. But the taxpayers in that city pay a civil rights attorney that will sue that department, and they make a lot of money off that. So their agenda is trying to point and create the inference that police are bad and that we need to fine them a lot of money to stop them from being bad. And it just happens to be that they get all the money from the fines, and they get a large portion, not all of it, a large portion of the money when somebody sues. So they got an agenda. It's a financial agenda. You can see a lot of wrong and a lot of bad things and a lot of false propaganda are done if you follow the money trail. Not all the time, but a lot of things are done evil and wicked for money, for mammon. And a lot of times people do evil because they're evil people and they're influenced by devils and demons, and they just enjoy seeing humans suffering, like Satan and Lucifer and evil, wicked demons of hell, and they just do it, and it's not about money. It's just because they enjoy they get pleasure out of other people's suffering, and that is one reason why people do evil. Now, I'm not saying that's why the civil rights attorney, but I'm saying a lot of these civil rights attorneys and a lot of these licensed attorneys have an agenda, and it's easy picking. It's low-hanging fruit. Get a video, look at what police do, take things out of time context, sue the police, convince a jury with false propaganda, and get a lot of money. There's a lot of money in it for them. I mean, you know, people, and I'm not saying this guy, some people call them ambulance chasers. Not the civil rights attorney, but when you have an agenda like a car wreck attorney, now they want to show that their client is bad injured. He's really bad. I mean, he's hurt so bad and he could just have a scratch. And he's hurt so bad to get a lot of money. It's about the money. And these civil rights attorneys, a lot of them that are going against police, are so full of it that they exaggerate stuff for their own monetary gain. It is not, absolutely not, nothing to do with protecting the public. It has nothing to do with it. In this particular case, this policeman was trying to protect the public from dangerous armed robbers, risking his life going after them. And would he have been better off sitting in a parking lot, letting them go down the street and rob somebody else and get away with it? He literally got out of his car, confronted people that just stuck a gun in people's face. How brave is that? And we'll go on. Let me make sure that the video and audio is on. Thank you all for joining me. I appreciate it. Like, share, comment, and subscribe. So that's false propaganda. Put out a time issue. Little bitty things like that. Lawyers are skilled. People think that lawyers are stupid, that lawyers are dumb. They criticize them. There's all kinds of jokes out about lawyers that it's said that what's a million lawyers at the bottom of the ocean, and the joke is it's a good start, and all kinds of jokes about lawyers, and they're very disrespected a lot, and jokes are made out of them, and they're disrespected for a lot of appropriate reasons, because a lot of them are liars. And I know I went to law school. It is very easy in arguing a case, and you're taught the art of persuasion and look at case law and how it's done, and taught to think about things that the general public doesn't think about in arguing facts and law. And lawyers are skilled, and they're very smart. They know the law, and they are trained in how to argue it and how to persuade a jury. And some of them are very skilled at it. And that is a skill that you develop in law school. It's called thinking like a lawyer. You learn how to present your case in the best light, and a lot of times they learn how to lie, quite frankly. Now, not all lawyers are bad, and I love lawyers. They are a benefit to society when they argue the truth, when they're truthful people. And I don't think there's many truthful attorneys left. It goes back to money. The lawyering should be about helping people and not about filling up their billfold. And there are a lot of lawyers that are wonderful. And I would advise people where you need legal help to seek lawyers. And I'm not running down lawyers. They're very smart people. And I have been to law school myself and graduated from law school and passed the bar exam twice. Now, the dirty Board of Law Examiners won't give me my law license, which actually is an added benefit to me in unbridled news, because I don't have to follow the rules of professional conduct. Now, that sounds good, following the rules of professional conduct. Well, you're not professional. No, the rules of professional conduct are just like this officer not using excessive force, but accused of violating professional rules when he didn't, when he was out protecting the public. Now, other law enforcement officers would have to go along with the program and say the chief was right because of the professional standards, but their professional standards were wrong because he did not use excessive force. So lawyers are trained and skilled. People think they're stupid, and a lot of them are pretty dumb about everyday life events and about how they handle a lot of things in their life. And I get that. A lot of them are drug addicts, and because of some of the sad things they deal with. But if you're talking about legal issues and how to frame them and knowing the law, and you're trying to argue with a lawyer, you're going to lose. You're going to lose. It's like you going up against a professional football player. They're trained. They work out every day at what they do. And even if they're not a good football player, a novice is not going to be able to outrun one or beat one most of the time, because they have practiced and trained at what they're doing. So lawyers are very smart. And in this particular case, you can see how intelligent this lawyer is by putting a focus on what the police officer did. And number one thing is he told them that stop or die, and that taints the whole video. It doesn't show where he had a right to do that. He had an obligation to do that because he's got an obligation to protect his life, and he needed to tell them that they needed to be stopped, and he needed to take precautions to do that. And the part about where they did a heinous crime, threatened the public in a seditious way by going in a store and pointing guns at people. I mean, how would you like it if you're in a store and thugs come in and start pointing a gun and it threaten your very life, your existence on the planet, because they want some money unlawfully? And then you expect the police, it is their job and duty to confront these people. How do you want them to confront them? Do you want them to use public communication skills? There is no communication skills that are appropriate in that circumstances other than to tell them the business that you have violated all rules of social responsibility. You're threatening to take people's lives. All the rules are barred. We're going to kill you unless you stop. Now that is totally appropriate. But see, that's shown first before the crime. 3 seconds of what they did is shown. The whole video is about what that officer did. That officer got fired because the chief and the department had an ulterior motive, I believe. It says in the video that the police chief reviewed the use of force like they review all uses of force like they're professional, and that he determined that the officer used the taser excessively and violated their policies. And that there was no violation of any use of force policy that I can see. It's called false propaganda. So I got some notes written down here. This was not a passive arrest. This arrest began with an armed robbery, elevated force considerations. When you're dealing with somebody that has threatened the public, they may kill you in the process of arresting him. Danger does not reset when a subject hits the ground. So he had him on the ground. He can still fight then. The suspect fled in a vehicle. After he was threatened with deadly force, he fled in a vehicle and hit a police car. Now that's shown first. The suspect, he struck a police car, and then he fled on foot again. He had a wreck, slammed into a tree. This officer's behind him doing his job. I mean, do we not want police to go after people that come in and stick a gun in your face and rob you? I mean, and when they do that, do we need to have them say, please, sir, and thank you, and if you would stop, I certainly would appreciate it if you wouldn't rob anybody else. I mean, let's just have some God-given common sense. Somebody threatening human lives seditiously. I mean, they just come in the store and scare people. They got their hands up. What they did is horrific. And do we want police officers that, please, sir, if you don't mind, I'd appreciate it. I don't want to get fired or lose my job, but I want you to stop. And please don't shoot me either. I mean, that's just so totally ridiculous. Is that what we as a society expect? I mean, there's a time when a good communication skills are out the window and say, stop or I will kill you. And that's even trained in academy. I mean, you tell them what you're going to do to put them on notice that is a good likelihood that you will do that. Because if you just say, would you please stop? I might shoot you. That's not appropriate conduct. You need to let them know that if they don't stop, you will shoot them. And even on felony stops, it's trained in law enforcement. Put your hands out the window, do exactly what I say, or we will shoot you. We will kill you. That's appropriate training in law enforcement. They tell you to do that. You're putting them on notice that you are prepared to do that so that they will obey you, so that if you do have to use deadly force, they were warned. They knew. So there's nothing wrong with anything that this police officer did. The story is in how this civil rights attorney is framing this. And the story is why this department chose that incident to get rid of him. See, it's not the incident when an officer gets fired, when an officer gets terminated, a lot of times, not every time, but a lot of times, sometimes they do such heinous stuff there's nothing they can do. But a lot of times, if you look at the incident and you question the incident, you say, now that doesn't look to me like he did anything wrong in the scheme of things, and the way they're portraying it and rigging things looks like that maybe he might have done the right thing, and I appreciate him doing what he did. Then maybe you need to think about, maybe it's a little higher than that. Maybe the corruption is a little higher than that. And they go into the fact that this police officer was a sergeant, and then he was demoted from sergeant because of some type of misconduct that they never mentioned. So he's already been into it with the establishment for some unknown reason. Who knows what it is? But they've already demoted him, so that they already have it out for him for some reason. Because this video is not a reason to fire a police officer. If I had been his police chief, I would have given him an award of valor and bravery for bringing this violent, dangerous robber into custody, and presented him on the news that this is what happens to you when you come to my city and rob one of my citizens and scare them to death. This man right here will take you down safely, not use excessive force, and protect you. And if they come back, he's still out on the road to this day, and he should have probably still been a supervisor. You can see he's doing supervisor positions in the video. You can go look at it. Civil rights attorneys tell him where to put it, and he knows exactly what's going on, and being very professional. The unprofessional was the higher up, the police chief that says that I reviewed the video and I determined that he used excessive force and turned it over to the state attorney, and then he got charged with a crime and lost his job for protecting society. That calling good evil and evil good. You can hear that man on the ground, I'm so sorry, and he's not got his hands behind his back. And after the fact, I mean, the time to be sorry is before you run in the door and stick a gun in innocent civilian's face. Let's see how many people got on here. Thank you all so very much for showing up. So we're talking about false propaganda. False information, false propaganda. And that is perpetrated by higher up in agencies and propaganded by people who have a financial interest in running down law enforcement. And a lot of them do wrong. I get that. Not as many as what they claim do. And when they don't do wrong and they protect the public, then they need to be honored for that. So this is one case where you can see the time element. When people are showing you things, look at the time that they show you. Did they range things around? Because what you know at A is what you know at A. Later on, you can get to B and know something different at B. But you can't make that decision at A yet because you don't know what's going to happen at B yet. So if you hold somebody accountable, what's happened at B, to when they were at A, then you're committing a falsity because they didn't have that information at A. And that's one way propaganda gets spread, because it's easy to assume, to put things together. It's hard to remember that you didn't have that same information back there, so you couldn't have acted the same way you would have at this time. And this is a time propaganda error that is common. There's many deceitful things that people do to spread false propaganda. It is a war tactic. It is a war against the truth, against civilized society. When you attack police wrongfully, it propagates armed robberies and makes heroes out of people that are violent and dangerous, and victimizes people that are trying to provide for public safety, which is what happened in this case by the civil rights attorney. Now, I believe that he is a good man, and a lot of his videos are 100% correct. He's got millions more views than I do. A lot of what he does, and I've watched a lot of his video, is that he dramatizes and pulls your heart out for some of these people that are horribly mistreated by police. And draws you in through that. And a lot of them are horrific instances, and police need to be called out for that. And I agree, 99% of what he does, I believe, is absolutely correct. In this case, he got it dead wrong because he didn't look at the big picture, and because he's blinded, I think he thinks he's right, by his own agenda of bashing police, so that he can portray that we need to go after them and they need to be sued more, and he can get more money. Now, I think he's a perfectly reasonable person. If he gets this video, I would ask him to relook at that, because there's nothing wrong with anything that police officer did. Nothing outside the bounds. The police officer's a hero in my view, and he misinterpreted it and put drug the officer through mud that he shouldn't have done. So the suspect fled in a vehicle. Suspect fled a police car. So he's not talking about all this. Fled on foot again. So he's fled twice. So he's not going into detail about what the suspect did, about his danger to society. And how are we supposed to get him if we don't let officers do their job? What are we supposed to do? Let them go around, rape, rob, steal, murder? Armed robbery is what this person was doing. That's a pretty serious crime. Flight is active resistance, not passive resistance. Officer did not know if the suspect was armed. So he is dealing with somebody when he gets out of the car. They've already ran, hit a police car. The first thing they showed 3 seconds of is armed robbery, threatening the public. He's found them. He's doing his job. He's finding them. He'd have been better off hiding somewhere. And that's why a lot of police officers get promoted. They never get in any trouble. Well, if they never get in any trouble, they're not doing anything, and they're worthless, and they're getting tax money for nothing. They probably ought to be arrested for stealing. I mean, that's a little exaggerated, but I'm just saying, if you don't have an officer ever getting in trouble for anything, any kind of doubt cast on, he's probably not doing anything right. If you go out of your house, you're in danger. If the officer does his job, he's going to be in extreme danger and subject to civil litigation and a lot of complaints. Look at the circumstances and not the propaganda. So they committed an armed robbery, refused to stop with an officer risking his life, telling him what was going to happen if they didn't. And he didn't even shoot him, which probably maybe couldn't have got a shot off or whatever. His life wasn't in immediate danger. And they hit a police car on the way out, and then they went down the road running so fast from law enforcement. He was still after him, doing his job, risking his life. He knew that armed robbery place, risking his life. I mean, give the man some credit. Give the man some credit. The other guy's up there on the microphone calling in. Why don't he get in his car and go back this officer up? I mean, he didn't get in any trouble at all. The one that's standing there in the parking lot, letting stuff go. So we have three things there, and then you have they slam into a tree or to a telephone pole trying to get on the interstate. You tell out of Dodge, go rob another place if they get by with this, and scare citizens to death. You want these people out running around? Do you want them out challenging you on the street, stealing your pocketbook? I mean, is that what you want? You know, if you keep getting rid of police, then that's what you're going to get, because they're not going to do their job. And it's getting to that now. They're not going to do their job. They're going to shy away from doing their job because of being demonized. And I'm not 100% pro cop. There's some bad cops out there. There are. I love cops for the most part. And that's the reason why I didn't continue to follow through with the lawsuit, even when they did wrong. They say that I couldn't win. I could have won a bunch of money off cops, but I didn't want to do that to those cops because they made a mistake. Cops make mistakes. Now, they should have been penalized financially, the ones in Chattanooga, but I still have a heart for police. They're peacemakers, and I'm a peacemaker. I have a heart, and I'll take a loss. The Bible teaches that to give your enemy your coat, go the extra mile with them. That's why I dismissed the lawsuit against them that I could have won, because police make mistakes. Now, they need to be corrected, need to do the right thing, but I'm on the side of law and order, because God's on the side of law and order. God's world that he made is full of order and things that you can measure. That's how you can know that there's a God. Things aren't chaotic. So do you want them out raping, robbing, and murdering, and police can't confront them? They got to make sure that they don't cuss when they arrest them, use appropriate language, and use human relation skills. If you want them fighting evil the best they can, legally and logically, and not making them public relations officials in the fight of getting a possibility of getting shot. I mean, come on, give me a break. Give them a break sometimes. So the civil rights attorney got it wrong. And officer did not know if the suspect was armed. Armed robbery suspects often discard weapons late. So he might have still had a gun in his waistband when he was. Hands not controlled equal threat unresolved. As long as somebody's hands are visible or moving around, not even visible, and not restrained, they can kill you with their hands. That's why when you get stopped in a car, a traffic stop at nighttime, or even in the daytime, let the officer see your hands. That's what he's worried about. He's watching your hands because you can grab a gun and shoot him. So he's going to watch for furtive movements with your hands. So keep your hands on your wheel. Let him see your hands. Don't make the officer nervous. And hindsight is not reality in the moment. Now we know how this turned out. That the guy didn't have any weapons on him. We know that, and that now that he may have been able to tase him less in order to get him in control. But that's not what law enforcement is about. Knowing stuff after the fact has nothing to do with it. Did he violate the law? Did he violate a taser policy in the process of what he did? Now, he tased him twice. When the guy got out and run, he ordered him on the ground. He didn't get on the ground. He tased him. Appropriate. Now, he could have had his gun out on him at that time if he wanted to. So a use of a taser was a lesser amount of force than he could have been threatening. He was using his taser to get the guy under control. He tased him because he wouldn't go on the ground. Then he went on the ground and he wouldn't put his hands behind his back, and he tased him again, according to the video. You can watch it. And the civil rights attorney and the city police chief says that was excessive force. And the attorney general in that area charged him with a crime. Now, as long as his hands are not visible, as long as his hands are not restrained, that's not excessive force. And he could have even been tased while his hands were restrained if he had been a threat with his legs. So just because somebody is handcuffed doesn't mean that they're not a complete threat. Now, normally they wouldn't be. If they start kicking or something like that, then you can still use force on somebody with handcuffs. There's no steadfast, hey, this is the way it is. Once they're handcuffed, hands off. But in this case, this officer never used force against this man while he was handcuffed. All of it was used prior to him being handcuffed in the process of getting him handcuffed. How you can come up with he used excessive force is wrong. It is absolutely wrong. He was charged wrong and terminated wrong. And then they use his previous record against him, which is totally false. This is propaganda. It's false information, backing up something else that's going on wrong in that department. If you ask me, I don't know what it is, but if they're getting rid of an officer over this, they got some serious problems with that agency. Hindsight is not reality in the moment. Tasers are used to stop flight and gain compliance, which is exactly what he did. They are meant to prevent escalation to deadly force. You know, it could have been escalated to deadly force. He didn't know if he had a gun on him, and something could have been misconstrued. They're meant to prevent escalation to deadly force. Multiple cycles may be debatable. It may be debatable, but I don't think from this video that it was used. The on the ground fallacy. Based on the ground does not mean secured. People shoot, stab, and flee from the ground. Until hands are controlled, the threat remains. And also, department's policy can be stricter than the Constitution. That don't mean he violated criminal law. Policy violations are administrative issues. I don't know how you can write a policy to stop anything that this officer did. If you did, it's a bad policy. Policy violations are administrative issues. Criminal charges require intentional cruelty. There's nothing about this video that shows that. He was never tased after he was handcuffed. Prior discipline. They say he was bring up his previous disciplinary history, their alleged prior bad acts, that they never explain what that was. To me, and this is what they're not telling you, that means the department was trying to get rid of him. They'd already demoted him. They already had some type of vendetta against him. And they were trying to get rid of him. And they're just using this instance, and the civil rights attorney's not looking at the big overall picture and saying, well, they got rid of him. They must have had a good reason to, and we'll look into it. And yeah, they did, which is, he's not looking at the overall picture. He's looking at the propaganda and buying into the propaganda. Don't believe everything you hear. Look beyond what what they're telling you to look at. And even in a pretty decent lawyer. Prior discipline does not prove guilt here. There's character evidence, not force analysis. Judge this incident on these facts. And on these facts, I'd give that officer an award, a commendation for his arresting a dangerous, violent felon. Very dangerous, violent. Threatening a gun, robbery in civilians, scaring the living daylights out of them, fleeing from police, hitting a patrol car, having a wreck, and then fleeing out of the car and then refusing to obey the orders when you're being arrested. You can debate tactics, you can critique judgment, but criminalizing force used on fleeing felons creates a dangerous precedent for public safety. If we charge officers for stopping violent felons after they flee, don't be surprised when officers stop chasing. That is the moral of the story. If you want good law enforcement, if you want to be protected and safe, now there are some people that can protect themselves, and I get that. Do that. People are capable of that. Protect yourself. You don't have to let people kill you. You can defend yourself against violent attacks. But not everybody is like that and skilled in that. And I would caution people, if you carry a gun, be very careful with it. And from my own experience, and also, if you carry a gun, it can be taken away from you. So if you're not prepared to mentally and spiritually to use it, then be very careful about carrying a gun, because it can be taken away from you and you brought a weapon to the fight. And they teach all police officers, every time you go to call, there's a gun involved. Every single call police goes on, there's a gun involved. And there is. It's his gun that can be taken away and used against him. Now, I remember in the academy, they taught us, and I'm not going to give the skill away, but weapon retention is secure position and release. Officers actually train in how to keep their weapons from a violent suspect that's trying to take it away and use it against them. The tactic is basically secure position and release. And a lot now, since a lot of police officers are killed with their own weapons, it happens a lot, then a lot of departments are going to security holsters, where it's a little bit more difficult to get the gun out of the holster than it used to be. But this is a case of false propaganda. We're talking about false propaganda because it is a real issue. It is a real issue nowadays that is from a biblical and from a Christian perspective. And I'm not hiding any agenda, and I'm not an agenda person, but I am a Christian, and I wouldn't even say I'm a good one. I would say that I'm trying to be a good one, trying to be more like Jesus Christ every day, and I pray that God will help me. But that is my worldview. Where I fail, I know I've failed to meet up to Jesus standards, which really none of us can. But as Christians, we're supposed to meet that standard. The standard for a Christian is to love our enemies, and that's a hard pill for me to take, and pray for our enemies and bless them that curse you and despitefully use you. Now, honestly, I have a hard time with that, and I do it, but I need to have my heart into it a little more than that. But that is a Christian standard that's hard to live by, hard to go by. That doesn't mean that you need to let your enemy kill you. I don't believe that, and I'm still trying to understand the full extent of that. Now, Jesus threw people out of the temple that were buying and selling for money. So Jesus used not violence, but used force in order to protect the church. So there is a time and place, and understanding that is important concept that we need to participate in. But what I'm saying is that I'm not an agenda person. I'm a truth teller. I look at the facts and try to present the truth as it is, not any particular agenda. And if I'm wrong, then I will say I'm wrong in some cases. That's why I'm saying I'm a Christian. I wouldn't say I'm a good one, because I'm trying to do better, and I'm not presenting an agenda. And I pray and have the Lord Jesus Christ in my heart, and I pray to be better. But I'm presenting the truth, and in the last days, I'm just telling you my perspective, so there's nothing hidden. It's all wide out in the open. And I love this American flag, and I love people, but an agenda is going out on a limb and trying to perpetrate a cause when it's not, when the issue is not there, and trying to frame it that way. I won't do that. And the reason why this is so important is propaganda. Propaganda is a form of war. It's maybe even more effective than bullets. It's lies that mislead people, and there's a lot of propaganda going on today. And the reason is, from my perspective, in the New Testament, Jesus warns against deception, particularly in the context of false teachings and end times. And in Matthew 24:45, Jesus cautions, see to it that no one deceives you. And then he says, for many will come in my name, claiming I'm Christ, and will deceive many. This warning highlights the prevalence of deception, the need to vigilantly among believers. So in the scriptures, my worldview, and I think this is going on even in AI and in the whole world. When I was growing up in the 70s, and I was born in the 60s, you could believe government officials for the most part, and the government institutions were set up to protect the public and law enforcement. I remember when I got started, you didn't have to watch over police officers' back for the most part. Police officers were out to serve the public, and they put their life at risk. And we didn't have a lot of body cameras, and all that weren't existent. Let's see how many people got in here. So while I was growing up, there was respect for the government and public officials, and a lot of the news was believable and perfectly reasonable, and it wasn't a lot of agenda and propaganda selling. But nowadays what you see is propaganda and false stuff and deception going on at an alarming rate like I've never seen in my lifetime. You can't believe almost anything that you hear. You have to have a basis. And so what this channel fights is false information. Now, I can't scratch the surface of false information. I mean, it is so horrific. You can't hardly believe anything. But there are some simple things that just pop up. I mean, wow, that's just obviously a dirty, blatant lie. And it doesn't matter if it comes from a judge's mouth. It doesn't matter if it comes from the governor's mouth. It doesn't matter if it comes from a public official's mouth. In that it's false, it matters that it's more damning and more dangerous to you when it comes from these people that are high in power, and a lot of it is perpetrated by government officials and people in government power. It's false information that's not believable, that harms the mass citizenry, and that is what I'm fighting, and looking into false narratives and false stories that other people aren't. Just looking for the truth. What's the truth in things? And the most ultimate truth that you can come to is, and I'll just share with you this, is to accept the Lord Jesus Christ in your heart, ask Him to forgive you your sins, and accept the Lord Jesus Christ in your heart, and ask Him to save you. That's the ultimate truth that you can believe in. Any other truth that you come to after that is irrelevant if you don't get there first. So that's just my message to the world. And you can still listen to this channel if you don't believe that. But what I'm telling you, any other thing in this that I convinced you is going to be of no significance when it comes to your soul. But in the last times, there's more propaganda. And I'm going to show you some of the propaganda that's put out by mainstream and just in this last election. This is little simple stuff that pop out like a sore thumb, and they're so obvious that it is completely ridiculous, and you can see it. So here is a picture. I ran an election. These are public officials. Now this is how elections are rigged, and they're rigged. People in the establishment tell you who to vote for, and they do it by propaganda, putting out false information, portraying a false picture of people. Now, I'm a very happy, positive person. I'm very happy and very positive. You don't achieve the level of education that I got and the level of knowledge that I got. And I'm not bragging, I'm just telling you the truth, without having a positive outlook on things. And I do. I have a positive outlook on things. Any Christian that believes anything about the Bible believes in God Almighty and knows that God's got everything under control. It doesn't matter what's going on in the world. Psalm 91, God's got us. We're going to win. You take our life, we'll go straight to heaven. Now, I'm planning to stay on the planet as long as I want to, but I'm a very positive person. I look at things in a positive light. Now, I see things as they are, and they're very bad, but I believe in ultimately that God's got me, that you can create total chaos, and I will pray, and everything's all right. Because I don't look at outside circumstances. I look at God, the most powerful, that created everything, the great loving God that loves everybody. So you're not going to destroy my will. You're not going to destroy my positive attitude unless you can destroy God, and good luck with that. I mean, that's not going to happen. So I have a very positive attitude. And in spite of all the bad that's happened to me, I'm still excited about the future, and excited about the things that God's given me, excited about my education, in spite of the fact that the government won't let me use it. I'll use it to fight them, and they need to be fought. But you can look in this last election. Let me just show you the false propaganda. I got less votes than anybody in the election in any county, now in any district in Knoxville. I got 59 votes, and I know more people that voted for me than what they're counting. I mean, I don't know how they counted things. I know I got into it with the election officials got into it with me about the voter list. You can look on a video where they were going to make me go through hoops to get it, and they let other people walk in there and get it. They didn't want me to be able to contact voters. Now, that's part of the propaganda. The government involved in influencing elections, and the election commission involved in influencing elections. Yes, I said it, and they are. They certainly are. How can you have somebody with as much education, knock on as many doors as I did, talk to as many people, get fewer votes than somebody that committed a felony? Wow, because they didn't attack the person that committed the felony. The news media and the election commission and the government officials didn't attack the person that committed a felony. They knew they didn't have to. They committed a felony. Ray ipsa loquitur, thing speaks for itself. But they knew that there's a lot of false propaganda about me, that I could overcome that false propaganda, that they needed to hammer that false propaganda and put some more on, so that and it worked beautifully. It worked beautifully. And I got less votes than a felon. How does that? Because they didn't pick on the felon, they picked on me, which is fine. Go right ahead. Your propaganda, your false propaganda is still not true, and it still can be beat, and I'm still trying to beat it. They don't understand. You don't quit. When you're right, you don't stop. You don't stop. In the civil rights era, the way they were treating black people was wrong. They ought to be allowed to drink out of the same water fountain. They ought to be able to sit on the front of the bus. They ought to have the same rights as white people. Skin color is a color of skin. They have a different race. They have a different lifestyle. At times they have a different culture, which is great. They are different. Race does mean that they are different people, which doesn't mean they can't associate with white people, but that doesn't make them bad or wrong. Doesn't mean they shouldn't have the same rights. And I have friends that are black. I'm not racist at all. I don't believe in white supremacy. It is very wrong. But to say that race doesn't matter is not true. Some people are proud of their heritage. And black African Americans, I'm not a black African American. They're proud of being an African American, which they should be. And Jesus was dark skinned. But what I'm saying is the fact that they presented a picture of me using false propaganda, and which is wrong. And when they did that with race, people with that fought racism didn't stop just because they put them in jail and they mistreated them because they weren't treated right, and they continued to fight that in spite of people in government power abusing them. So So you keep fighting if you're right. And they were right about what they did. They were absolutely right about fighting wrong. And I'm absolutely right about fighting the false propaganda about me. And they ultimately have made things better for themselves. Better than what they were. And what I'm getting to is that they slaughtered me in the news media and hammered stuff false about me. And here's just one instance that they did. Here's a show that I did by public broadcasting and an African American broadcaster that I think is pretty prejudiced, because the African Americans that he had on the show, he's got them pictures of them smiling, and I'll show you the picture of me. And he's also got other candidates smiling pictures, and mine with my head down. They've screenshotted me with my head down, and that is the screenshot in the picture they're portraying. That's propaganda. That's false. And that's only one of the small things they did. But you can see that the news media and people in the government power are going after Charles Van Morgan, which is a good thing. That tells you that I'm a good person, because if you trust people in government power, then excuse me, I hate that for you. That you're being misled by their false propaganda, because they're in power right now, and 99.9% of them are crooked as hell. They're not out for you. They're spreading lies. They didn't want me to win because I'm for you. And the best educated on the ballot at the time, and the best educated in protecting you, the public, but not on their team, not going to be part of the elite government that serves them, that's going to lie for them. And that's why they went after me. They know that I'm not a go-along person. I go along with the truth. And I'm not afraid of them. I fear God, not man. And they want a go-along person, so they got their go-along person. Here's one of the ladies. This is the lady that won. You see that big smile on her face? You see that big smile on this lady's face? Let me show you here. Let me show you here the big smile on her face. Wow. And the commentator there. So that's one of the screenshot. That is the screenshot on the video where she is interviewing for news for that position of city council. And she ultimately went on to win it. And here is a screenshot of the other lady that was running against me that was on the show. And you can see her smiling face in this video. The smiling face, and they show her name here, and you can see the commentator. So the smiling face, and that is two people. That is two people that ran against me in a race where I got less votes, never been convicted of any crime. Now there's people on here says I got convicted of stuff in Georgia. That's false. That's not true. I've never been convicted of any crime. And I'm not going to say I've never committed a crime. I went over the speed limit before, and if anybody says they've never committed a crime, then they're wrong. And here's my picture that they've got of me. And like I said, I have a positive attitude. I'm not a negative person at all. I'm the most positive person in the whole race that's even been on the board nowadays. That's on the board nowadays. I'm a very positive person. Why? Because I trust in God. I believe God's got things. I don't look at outside circumstances as much. And if I worry about outside circumstances, I pray about stuff. God's in control. I believe that. I know that in my heart and mind. And God's got my best interest in mind. You're not going to do anything to Charles Van Morgan unless you go through God Almighty, unless He allows it to happen. I'm not saying bad won't happen, but if it does, then God's allowed it, and I'm okay with that. So here's the picture, the screenshot of the picture they have. This is just small propaganda. In the end times, remember, there's going to be a false propaganda just all over the place. And it's going to get worse and worse. Lies and deceit, can't believe anything. I'm just showing you a little bit of the propaganda in elections. And this is why people in government power get elected, and they shouldn't be elected. It's because they were elected by false information, by how people in power portrayed them wrongly, not how they actually are. And I'm not saying these people aren't actually happy, but why wouldn't they show my picture with a smiling face? I'm just showing you. This is a screenshot of what they showed on this show, and this man is probably one that allowed it. This is a screenshot of me. Got my head down, and there's the commentator, and that's how they that's how they portrayed Charles Van Morgan in the city council race. And that's why I got fewer votes than any candidate in the race, and which is totally it's much propaganda. And let me mention today the Music City Bowl. I'm a Vol fan, and one of the candidates that won the race is not even a Vol fan. And let me mention that I'm a Tennessee Vol fan, and the Music City Bowl is at 4:30 today on ESPN, and so go Vols. I'm a huge UT fan. I've got a big fancy degree from there. So go Vols, and we're going to mention a few other things. Try to build up my channel, build up some views. A few other things in the news about false propaganda and false information, and trying to discern the truth in spite of all the lies that are put out. And there's certainly a lot of them, and especially now, and I believe it's the end times. Especially now, there is so much falsehood going on, so much stuff that's just total lies, and that can influence you wrongly and cause you to make wrong decisions about things. Truth is not seeing what you want to see. It's calling a ball and a strike, regardless of the team. It's telling it like it is, even when it doesn't fit your particular agenda. And I have no agenda. My agenda is telling the truth and looking at things like they are, instead of following along with the narrative of what people in government power tell you it is. So that is what I'm about. And let's look at the something that I seen yesterday with the president that gives me very positive thinking about the United States of America. And so if you're concerned about America, there's some signs right now of some positive things, and it would probably make people think it fits your agenda to tear everything down, because that's what I do a lot. Truthfully, when it's truthfully there, I'll do that. But when it's not there, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to go along with false propaganda. I'm going to go along with truth. And there are some signs that America, United States of America, right now, in as far as from the White House, and a lot of people might not like me saying this, and I don't care. Hopefully you get on board. At least you know where I'm coming from. But there are some signs that America is in good position right now, and it is in a position to be blessed. And I'm about to tell you what that is. And in spite of false propaganda. So let's look at this. Let's look at this. What I seen just yesterday in the news, and then we're gonna show you something else about what's going on in the news with the White House. Just yesterday, let's see if I can find this. Just yesterday, I seen the President of the United States was doing a press conference with Netanyahu, the president of Israel, and they were both speaking to each other nicely, and Netanyahu praising President Trump, saying that they had a great friendship. And a lot of people don't like me saying this. A lot of people don't agree, and I don't care. You can believe whatever you want to believe. and think whatever you want to think, but it is good that our president gets along and blesses the nation of Israel. You know, we bombed Iran's nuclear facilities to protect the United States and to protect the nation of Israel, to be friends with Israel. And there's a lot of false propaganda about the nation of Israel. You know, the Jews, about 6 million Jews were annihilated, murdered during Hitler's time. So there's a lot of anti-Semitism, and a lot of it is rising up again in the last days. But I can proudly say that I am not anti-Semitic. I bless the nation of Israel. I pray that God blesses the nation of Israel. And I am on the side of the United States of America, my home country, where I would shed my blood to protect this nation. But I'm on the side of the nation of Israel, and it teaches in the Bible that I will bless them that bless you and curse them that curse you. Israel is who the Lord Jesus Christ came from. Now, Jesus Christ's salvation is not reserved just to Jews. Jesus has been offered to the whole world, but that is who God chose Jesus Christ to come through. And prophetically, according to the Bible, throughout all generations, and you can buy this or not, but I subscribe to the truth. And here you see Mr. Trump and Mr. Netanyahu eating just yesterday at a table in Mar-a-Lago, the Israel flag and the American flag, and so they are great friends. And Netanyahu has said some great things about the president, and said he values his friendship. You can see right down here on the where they were on stage together. And you can see President Trump is pointing at him in a smiling manner, and you can see Netanyahu smiling at President Trump, which to me is golden that you see that taking place, because the Bible says he's the president of the United States. The Bible says, "I will bless them that bless you, that bless you, and I'll curse them that curse you." Now that's the truth. He's the head of Israel. So to see that happen, you never seen Biden do that. So to see that happening is a wonderful thing for the United States of America. Now people don't have to believe that. And I've had people that I thought were my friends, joint statements. So we're friends with them. We're friends with the nation of Israel, which is a wonderful thing. Which is a wonderful thing for the United States of America. It is a wonderful thing. Now that's a good sign. That is an excellent sign for America, that we are blessing the nation of Israel. And that means that God's going to bless America. There's not a maybe. I'll bless them that bless you and curse them that curse you. And that is the leader of this country standing on the side of right. Now, you can say whatever you want to about Mr. Trump. Now, a lot of the Epstein files is out and everything like that. And I care nothing about that. But basically nothing. I pray for the victims, that they will get justice, and that God heals them. And that if there's any other wrongdoing and any of that going on, that we need to find that. But that's not an issue. It's not a big issue. And people are trying to demolish President Trump over that. And you look at some of the things they're saying, and you understand why that they're doing that. It's false propaganda. The Jew haters and wicked, evil people that are going against right. And it's false propaganda. It's not truth. And I'm going to dispel that falsehood. If you don't agree with me, then you're wrong. You're wrong, because it's a biblical principle that you can count on, and that is what I base my worldview on. At least I'm not lying to you. I'm not telling you, hey, this is what I believe. This is scriptural. This is biblical. And there are things in the Bible that are plain spelled out that you can't argue with. I mean, people go through all kinds of hoops to present their propaganda, when it clearly says, I will bless them that bless you and curse them that curse you, and speaking about the nation of Israel. It says that several times. That is clear as a bell. And it's talking about through all generations. That verse didn't go away in 1947 before Israel became a nation. It is going on today. You can mark it down. A nation that curses Israel will be cursed. That God will do that. And it's a fearful thing to fall in the hands of an angry God. So this is a wonderful, encouraging sign for the United States of America. I believe the economy, and I believe things are getting a lot better. Now, if you want to focus on the Epstein files and worry about something while you can't eat and read the Epstein files while everybody's starving to death, if that's what you think, then go ahead. That's not worth a hill of beans. The important issue, and I don't believe we are going to starve to death, because I believe we got a president in the White House, regardless of what party. He used to be a Democrat. So if you're a Democrat, he used to be a Democrat. And I'm not praising a man. I'm praising what a man is doing for this country. I believe influenced by God Almighty and influenced by Christian people that are praying for this man, that influence him to do the right thing. I believe what he's doing is bigger than him. I believe that he's allowing himself to be influenced by these Christian people that are praying for him, and he's allowing himself to be influenced by God, which is good, but what he's doing is bigger than him. And you have people like Marjorie Taylor Greene. Now, she was a big ally of the president and fought for him tooth and nail, and I appreciate that she did that. And it was wonderful that she was out on the forefront speaking for President Trump, a extreme supporter of him that created chaos in a lot of instances where some people didn't think it was appropriate, where I think that it was. And I think she was a wonderful supporter of Donald Trump, on his side, a force to be contended with for the extremist people that were against a God-fearing agenda. But something changed, and I wondered, she started going against Donald Trump over the Epstein files, and I wondered what in the world is going on with this woman. Why is she standing against Mr. Trump? And you think maybe she was such a supporter, maybe there's some substance to that. Maybe God's not wrong, but maybe Donald Trump is wrong in something that he's doing. And I'm not a great supporter of any man. I'm a supporter of any man that does God's will. That's what I'm a supporter of. I don't care if you're a Democrat and you do God's will, then I'm on your side. It's not about party. It's about what Dr. Martin Luther King said. I just want to do God's will. And if you do that, then you won't have propaganda and you'll be on the right side. So when I see stuff like this with Netanyahu and the President Trump standing side by side, wow, that is beautiful. That is so beautiful. Because we will be blessed, because we are on the side of the nation of Israel. And that is biblical principle. So look at that picture and have high hopes for the United States of America. That's President Trump and Netanyahu over the nation of Israel, which is so very wonderful to me. And that is such a great sign for this country. And Marjorie Taylor Greene, I wondered, why is she doing all this and going against the president, and then I read some of her comments that she made against the nation of Israel, destroyed every bit of credibility that woman ever had with me or should have with you. And it kind of explains to me, and also shed some light on the Epstein files. Now, she's out here fighting the battle for Mr. Epstein and framing it as the victims of propaganda, as framing it as fighting for the victims of the Epstein crimes. And he's dead. He can't commit any more crimes. And if there's any more criminal prosecutions, then fine. The FBI's got people that can do that. They haven't been able to find any yet. It may be that these are such powerful people that they can't be prosecuted like they should. I don't know, but that is not a focus that this country needs to be focused on. It is not. And the president has said it's a hoax. And I believe that it is. I believe he's telling the truth. It also puts him in a bad light because he had pictures taken with Epstein. That doesn't mean anything. Guilt by association is not guilt. It is not. It is absolutely not. People that talked to Mr. Trump that were victims said he always treated them nice, that he was not a perpetrator of that kind of wrongdoing. And I don't believe that he was. The fact that he is in pictures with Mr. Epstein, guilt by association, is propaganda, false propaganda, designed to diminish the efficacy of the presidency of the United States that I believe right now is being led by God Almighty and protecting him. The fact that Marjorie Taylor Greene goes bad on Trump and starts running him down and saying he's against the victims and wants to cover up the Epstein stuff, when he actually signed his name to release the files, knowing that he had pictures of him, and has explained that very well. I don't need to defend the president. He's very capable of defending himself. And to me, I don't look at what he says, very eloquent what he says. He can defend himself. He can fight his way out of a wet paper bag. He can fight like hell. I mean, I have every bit of confidence in the man's ability, which if he was on the wrong side of doing right, I wouldn't give a damn what he said. Joe Biden was very eloquent himself. I mean, they act like he's some kind of babbling idiot, but he's very eloquent, made it all the way to the White House. At least he got voted in. At least he got sworn in. I'm not sure about voted in. But I'm talking about the false propaganda. That's what we're dealing with today. We're dealing with a real war, the war not of bullets. We're dealing with the war with propaganda. So here you have the president with Netanyahu. Wonderful, wonderful. Everybody in this nation ought to be excited about the future of this country with a nation that's blessing Israel. You're saying, God, I believe you. You're right. We're on the side of Israel. We've even taken military action to protect ourselves and the nation of Israel. Now, I know he might say a few things to throw people off about Israel, that they're not doing specific things right. And no country is perfect on the face of this planet. Do not get me wrong. We should point out errors and inconsistencies to make a better Israel and disagree with things we should. As a nation, we should bless the nation of Israel. That's not me saying that. That's God saying that. Now, I've heard people say, so-called friends of mine, and they are, but they're just wrong, and I hope to educate them, that those people in the nation of Israel aren't even the descendants of Jesus. Wow. Well, where are they? Where are the descendants? Where are the descendants of Jesus Christ? I mean, they're somewhere on the earth because he actually lived. That's documented historical fact that there was a man named Jesus that claimed to be the Son of God, that died for the sins of the world, that healed the sick, fed people, raised the dead, that did miracles that no one could do, that actually lived on the face of the planet. If those aren't his people in Israel, the Jews are his descendants, historical record in the Bible. I mean, it tells you such and such begot such and such. Then where are those Jews? They're in Israel. They became a nation in 1948 as predicted in prophecy. That's where they are, and they are God's people, and we should cooperate and try to do what we can to bless the nation of Israel. How do you bless people? You be good to them. You try to help them the best you can. You bomb Iran that's trying to destroy you, wipe them off the planet. And you do exactly what Mr. Trump is being led by God to do. Stand on stage there is wonderful. And get that picture. Wonderful thing for America. The economy is going to get better. This country is going to be blessed, I believe, because of what we're doing for Israel. Now, that doesn't mean to say that the nation of Israel is perfect and that we're in heaven now. We're not. We're absolutely not. You can point out things that Israel's doing wrong, and maybe they should be called out for stuff that they're doing wrong, and maybe we should help them correct some of the stuff. But as a nation, as a country, as a people, as a person, Charles Van Morgan, individually and as yourself, I would encourage you to pray for the nation of Israel and speak highly and well of God's people that the Lord Jesus Christ came through. Now, that is what the Bible commands, and all your arguments, and Nick Fuentes and Tucker Carlson and the other lady that runs down the Jewish people. I don't buy that garbage. It's not true. I'm not listening to it. I'm not buying it. I worry and pray for your soul, because I think that you're on the wrong side of God, and that you will pay the consequences of that. I'm not sure about in this life, but in the next you will. And it is through demonic influence if these people are doing that. I mean, you have Tucker Carlson, and we're going to talk about that, one of the most powerful speakers on the planet, that is going against the nation of Israel and trying to split the conservative movement that voted for Mr. Trump. So I looked into Marjorie Taylor Greene, and she's split with Donald Trump, saying that he's no good, and pinning it on the Epstein files. And there's nothing there. There's nothing there in the Epstein files. He's not done anything. He's got some pictures with Mr. Epstein. Means nothing. Means nothing. I would go so far as to say, and Mr. Trump said this the other day in the other context, where there is smoke, there is not always fire. There's not. He mentioned, where there's smoke, there's fire usually. But where there's smoke, there's not always fire. There's not. There's not. You can make smoke without fire. So Marjorie Taylor Greene accused Israel of genocide. Accused Israel of genocide. And so now there's this big split. So it has nothing to do with the Epstein files. What it has to do with the split is over our cooperation and our assistance of Israel, and recognizing the fact that Israel is not involved in genocide. That is not true. That is a lie. That is propaganda. That is false. It's false. And anybody that spreads that is lying to you and ought to be prayed for, because God's not going to bless them. I believe that. So be very careful and be very excited. So the split with Marjorie Taylor Greene is not about the Epstein files. The truth is, it's about the nation of Israel. That's what it's about. That's the war that's going on there. The propaganda put out is very deceptive, is that you, Mr. Trump, because you are for the nation of Israel, I'm not. I'm going to accuse him of genocide. And you're not accusing of genocide. You're there with Netanyahu on stage speaking highly of him. You've taken military action to protect the United States and him. You're on their side. And Marjorie Taylor Greene is on the side of demonic influences, using the Epstein files to create a divide to try to destroy a man that's helping Israel. So I would not listen to one word that she says. She accused, and I wondered what the divide was. Maybe she's right. And then I look into, she accused Israel. She accused this man right here, Netanyahu, of genocide. She accused him of genocide. That's not true. She's accusing him of being involved in pedophilia and being involved in raping children. And why is she doing that? I'll tell you why she's doing that. Because they're on stage together, because he's doing what's right. And I'm not worshiping that man. I'm thanking him for what he's doing, for doing God's will. That's what I appreciate for him doing God's will. So it's not about the man. It's not about praising the man. I wouldn't care if it's Joe Biden. And Joe Biden did some good things. As a party, they do some evil things that I can't back up. As a man, I like the man. I think he's very personable, and I prayed for him when he was in office, and he really did some good things. He did some good things about the student loan, where he helped students, where he deferred the student loan during the COVID. And he did some good things financially. It's not about the party. It is not about the party. To me, it's about the truth. And the truth ultimately is God's holy word. You can find the truth in there. And the truth is about dispelling propaganda, putting out the truth. So I won't lie to you. I'm on the side of Israel. I don't think Israel is a perfect country. I think they do things wrong. I think as a command and as a God-fearing person, I should be very respectful to the nation of Israel, and I should bless Israel in order to receive a blessing. I appreciate that the president and this nation ought to be excited. And don't fear war, don't fear annihilation. Not as long as we're getting along with Israel. So Marjorie Taylor Greene's separation from Donald Trump, nothing to do with Epstein files, has something to do with the nation of Israel. That's the culprit. You look it up. She said that Mr. Netanyahu that his nation, under his direction and his command, is committing genocide. And that is absolutely false. That's what, interestingly enough, was perpetrated against them. There's a historical record. Mr. Fuentes denies it, spoke on Tucker Carlson's show under the pretext of free speech. Free speech is not about giving a platform to lies and agreeing with that while you're speaking to them under the pretext of putting out free speech. That is deceptive. That's propaganda. That is trying to open the door to allow people to listen to a whole lot of lies. And the reason that I mention that is that America First agenda with the Charlie Kirk movement is putting out antisemitism, and it's infiltrating America, the conservative movement. The people, I'm sure a lot that listen to me, if you're not conservative, you can listen to me too. I have a lot of liberal ideals that go along with what Jesus Christ would have done, where he fed people and he didn't ask them to work. And I'm not saying feed people that don't work, but I'm saying have a heart for people. If they need food, then maybe you feed them and they work later. But I'm just talking about having a heart for people. So I have a lot of liberal views according to the facts. They're liberal, biblical, Jesus Christ views. I think it's a pretty liberal view to say to love your enemies. That's pretty liberal. And I believe that that's the goal that we ought to achieve. Quite frankly, I haven't achieved that yet. I'm working on it. But I have liberal views. I'm not as conservative as a lot of people think. But the conservative movement, a lot of people listen to me, believe that we should appreciate the nation of Israel. And the conservative movement voted for Mr. Trump. They believe Charlie Kirk's rhetoric, and I appreciate Charlie Kirk. He wasn't right about everything. He was pretty young. And in speaking to older people, you all are a lot smarter than younger people. And I'm not criticizing young people. I have a lot of younger followers. If you're younger, get on board. If you're younger, I would advise you to listen to older people that have experienced what you think, that what you've been through, and listen to their advice and what they tell you. Not all of them. If you get a consensus and listen, and they can help you. If you're 20 years old, when I was 20 years old, I've been 20. If you're 20, you've never been my age. And I have lived 20, and I know what it's like to live 20, 30, 40, 50. And I have learned a lot, and my opinions have changed from the time I was 20. When I was 20, I thought that the government was respectable institutions, and that if you did right and obeyed the law, then everything would be fine. That's not true. That's absolutely not true. The government is not, people in government power, a lot of them are not respectable people. And they do wrong, and if you do right, a lot of times you'll be punished by the government, by people in government power. I've learned to appreciate and have respect for that and realize that you're not going to get anywhere on this planet by your own knowledge, your own intellect. You better trust in God about things, because wrong wins a lot. This planet is controlled by Lucifer and evil, wicked demons, and the only chance we have is trusting God. So there's a lot of anti-Semitism coming in the last days, infiltrating America and the conservative movement now that Charlie Kirk has died. And we are the truth movement. And a lot of this has to do with anti-Semitism, which is rising in the last days. Imagine that. Under Hitler, 6 million Jews were killed. And now all of a sudden the Jews are committing genocide, according to the false propaganda that has infiltrated the conservative movement, that conservatives are truthful people that see things as they are, but even the conservative movement is being attacked from the inside with the Charlie Kirk's assassination and Jew haters. I don't believe that Charlie Kirk was a Jew hater, was anti-Semitic. I know that Charlie Kirk was young. He was wrong about a few things. One of the things he was wrong about, and Nick Fuentes is a white supremacist that is very anti-Semitic and has said some horrific things. He spoke on the Charlie Kirk. He was interviewed by Tucker Carlson, and which I wouldn't give him. It's not freedom of speech to let false people speak on your show without challenging them about their false beliefs. Dick Fuentes even said he'd like to marry a 16-year-old, talking about pedophilia. I mean, wow, he said that, and we're attacking Trump, not because he's involved in any kind of wrongdoing in that manner, trying to say they are, because it's demonic, it's false propaganda, because he is on the side of evil. And sometimes when you're on the side of right, you face evil. So the Charlie Kirk movement is the conservative movement that helped Trump get in office, is being infiltrated by false propaganda by Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, and you have Major Tyler Green attacking and being anti-Semitic, and you see violence against Jews ever increasing. And it's not by coincidence. It's not coincidence at all. It is war on the Christian faith and war on God's people, because Satan hates God's people. So I'm going to show you a little bit of a video from a guy that spoke about the problem with anti-Semitism and the issues that it's causing with the Charlie Kirk movement. Now, since Mr. Kirk has died, it's a show on TBN, and he says to spread the message. So we're going to spread his message a little bit. Talks a little bit about anti-Semitism and the false propaganda. Let's see if I can find it here. And hopefully y'all are not in any hurry. I got plenty of time. Thank you for watching the show. We've reached close to 1.8 million people in the past few months, just putting the truth out from an educated, life-lived perspective. And that's what we're going to keep doing in spite of the false propaganda. And I'm just putting out the truth. I don't have an agenda other than dispelling falsehoods and fighting for the truth. And this is a video that was put out by TBN, and it's talking about the inflammatory stuff about the conservative movement and what's happened to the Charlie Kirk movement now that Charlie Kirk's been assassinated. So let's look at this, a little bit of this video right here. Oops. Okay. Let's look at a little bit of this video by TBN Network with this speaker here who's discussing the convention that they had in okay, about to have a little fire here. Who's discussing the convention that they had so we just had some real news here almost. Come on board, just had a fire almost. So we got it out. So let's look at this video by this TBN. We're talking about false propaganda.
Applied in state assemblies and on state governments, and the mayors of big cities and in small towns. It finds its way into the boardrooms of corporations, and worst of all, it makes its way onto the campuses of universities and even primary schools. This pressure also finds its way into the streets, and it manifests in the protests in front of synagogues and Jewish community centers, putting Israel and Jews everywhere in danger. Welcome to this special edition of Boots on the Ground. I'm Mati Shoshani, and here at TBN Israel, we bring you the full truth about what's happening in Israel. But tonight, we're also bringing you the full truth about what's happening in America, because that has a direct effect on us here in Israel. And we need you to pray for these issues, because the war against Israel is not only fought with rockets and terror tunnels, it's fought with narratives and propaganda. Increasingly, it's also fought through the normalization of anti-Semitism in places where
So you see here the wars are fought with propaganda and anti-Semitism that's taken root big time in the United States of America, and a lot of smart people are getting fooled by this and getting distracted by lies. So this TBN show, and I encourage every one of y'all to watch this, entitled "Inflammatory Rhetoric and Conspiracy Theories Fracture U.S. Support for Israel." And that's exactly what this is about. That's part of Major Tyler Green. Nothing to do with Epstein files. It's about fracturing America's support for Israel, calling them, saying that they're committing genocide, which is false. So it has nothing to do with Epstein files. And this is what this show is about. And this is what this show is about pointing out falsehoods that could endanger this country. But I'm happy to see the president with Netanyahu. Everything's fine in this country. Don't believe the inflammatory rhetoric that puts Jews in danger. And it goes on to show Tucker Carlson spoke at the convention, Charlie Kirk's convention. He's dead, and is starting to infect this anti-Semitism into the conservative movement. So be very aware of this. And my position, get it very clear. I don't care who you are, and I don't want to be enemies with people. But if I take a position you want to be enemy with me, then go right ahead. I'm standing on the truth, and I'm not going to shy away from that. Charles Van Morgan is a friend of Israel. God bless Israel. That's my position. Those are the people of Israel in that city. They're God's chosen people, and that's God's people, and we should bless them. So let's watch a little bit more of this, and I'll show you how anti-Semitism has taken root in the propaganda.
Jews once felt safer, and where Israel once felt stronger support than it does today. So in this special edition, we're going to do three different things. First, we're going to lay out what happened at America Fest and why it matters for you. Second, we're going to map the Tucker Carlson-Candace Owens ideological ecosystem and how it intersects with that.
So you seen Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens at this, and they were at the convention and speaking against. They speak against the nation of Israel. So I have a problem with that, and they're getting a lot of money from that, aren't they? So I have a major problem with people that speak against the nation of Israel. Now that is Charlie Kirk's. That is Charlie Kirk's wife, the widow. And let's look at
It's like a family Thanksgiving where people are hashing out.
that's Charlie Kirk's widow, and that's Steve Bannon. And this is Charlie Kirk, I believe, or Tucker Carlson, speaking at the conservative movement in Phoenix, Arizona. This thing's having trouble moving here. Technology.
A few viral clips and a few narratives that spread like an infection. And that's what this weekend looked like. Now let's take a look at perhaps the biggest fish in this pond, Tucker Carlson. To understand why Tucker Carlson is at the center of the story, you have to understand what he represents.
And he's
not just a commentator, he's a platform, a distribution engine. Tens of millions of people have.
So that's Mr. Tucker Carlson, the propagandist for Mr. Putin, who has, and that's really pretty insignificant compared to his slander in the nation of Israel. His meeting with Mr. Putin, and a lot of commentators would be afraid to go over there that Mr. Putin would kill him, because if you tell the truth, Mr. Putin is a horrible, violent, dangerous man that's taken over a sovereign country. And Mr. Tucker Carlson speaks against Israel, allowed Nick Fuentes, a white supremacist, on his show that speaks against the nation of Israel, that puts out a lot of anti-Semitic information. And he's got a huge audience and a huge crowd that buys into what he says, and that's just what they believe, just whatever he says, and very artful in how he words things, and just an artful liar that is into hating Jews. And I don't listen to him anymore. And he's false, and he's wicked, and he's evil in what he's doing to Jews, putting out this false propaganda.
Outsource their thinking to this man, hanging on his every word, inhaling his every thought, so they can repeat what he says word for word in an echo chamber that has few precedents in human history. That's a big problem, because Tucker Carlson has something that almost nobody else has.
He's got an audience, which is what we're trying to build up. And now here's Miss Candace Owens. Now here's a real winner too, which is benefiting.
Small business could run a TV ad on even
She's starting to benefit off of Jew hating, off of her anti-Semitic information, off of her anti-Semitic views, criticizing the nation of Israel when it's very clear in the Bible that those are God's chosen people. That's how Jesus Christ was born, through Jewish people. Those are his people, and presented to the whole world. God blessed the whole world through the Jewish people. That's a historical fact. And why are these people hating the Jews? Because Lucifer, Satan, hates Jews, and so it's demonic. It's demonic forces, and that's the truth. We're fighting this false propaganda. I don't care who it is that says that. If President Trump was against the nation of Israel, then I wouldn't vote for Mr. Trump. It's not about who it is. It's about, now here's Candace Owens.
You start with legitimate criticism of policy, which is allowed in a free society. Then you add insinuations about hate.
Here's Candace Owens.
Because if Tucker Carlson represents the platform, Candace Owens represents the pipeline. The pipeline goes like this. You start with legitimate criticism of policy, which is allowed in a free society. Then you add insinuations about hidden forces. Then add vague references to donors, networks, and media control. Then shift from talking about Israel to talking about the Jews. Then escalate to old religious and racial conspiracies. In a recent podcast, Candace Owens did exactly that. Let's ground this carefully. Candace Owens was once a major conservative star, including at the Daily Wire, where she worked in the same ecosystem as Ben Shapiro. But in March 2024, the Daily Wire publicly announced it ended its relationship with her after months of conflict and public controversy connected to Israel and anti-Semitism allegations. Now that's the background. But the bigger issue is what she's saying today and how she's saying it. Because in her response to the TPUSA or America Fest conflict, she doesn't just attack Ben Shapiro personally. She uses language that hits multiple classic anti-Semitic tropes. The kind of tropes that have fueled real violence against Jews for centuries.
So you see these people putting out false information about the Jewish nation, going exactly against the truth and exactly against what's expected of Christian people in the conservative movement, using Charlie Kirk. And he was assassinated. He's not here to stand up against that. And I don't believe he was for that. If he was wrong. And here is Ben Shapiro
saying she's been pushing conspiracy content. He also criticized Megyn Kelly for refusing to condemn those conspiracy
Megyn Kelly.
And he slammed Tucker Carlson for hosting Nick Fuentes, calling that decision morally bankrupt. Shapiro's argument is not complicated. If your movement cannot reject anti-Semitism when it comes from your own side, then your movement is compromised. And that is why his speech hit like a grenade. A lot of people in politics want the benefits of moral clarity without paying the price of confronting the loudest voices in their own camp. Shapiro has paid that price publicly, and what happened immediately afterwards proves how deep the fracture actually is. Tucker Carlson took the stage and mocked the entire concept of deplatforming and denouncing. He described Shapiro's speech as something he watched and laughed at. By the way, false humor, which is exactly an expression of derision and contempt, is also a weapon often used against Israel by both the left and the right. It's used a lot against Christians too, as I'm sure you're aware. But things got worse at America Fest, because the next night, Steve Bannon escalated the rhetoric even more, calling Shapiro like a cancer. Megyn Kelly responded too, ending their friendship and accusing Shapiro of trying to control who can speak and when. So this wasn't a simple disagreement. It was a power struggle inside the conservative movement over who gets to define the boundaries of acceptable speech.
So here we have in the conservative movement a huge divide over hatred of Israel. Wow, isn't that amazing? How does that pop up? Well, it pops up because of deception that's getting worse in the end of days that is predicted in the Bible. And it is very clear here. Now, Ben Shapiro is a man that should be listened to. So out of all these commentators that this person's listening that have broad outreach, and I'm trying to get broad outreach, the Charles Van Morgan Unbridled News Show, and I'm just telling you the truth from a biblical worldview perspective. I'm not even lying to you about my perspective, about my view. Now, if I disagree with the Bible, I'm wrong. If I disagree with that worldview, I'm wrong. But that's my perspective. So I'm not being deceitful. I'm not telling you that I'm coming from somewhere I'm not. I'm not being a false propagandist. I'm telling you from what worldview, what perspective I've come from. I believe it is right and appropriate. My life experience has exonerated me in that is appropriate. Now, I haven't always been treated right, but my life perspective is one that God is always right, and you should always do what God says to do and reject falsehoods. And these people are trying to demoralize America and cause America to go against the nation of Israel and pinning it on the worldview that America first excludes us from helping the nation of Israel. And even if we do help the nation of Israel and they exclude us, we're wrong by helping the nation of Israel because they're committing genocide. That's false. That is false propaganda, deception that's going on in the last days that we should fight against. So listen to Ben Shapiro. There are a lot of good biblical Israel preachers that speak the truth about the nation of Israel. We have a president, thank the good Lord in heaven. This is really wonderful. This is something that you ought to be excited about, is that this country, from the top of the White House, honors and appreciates the nation of Israel. From just yesterday in Mar-a-Lago, we had Netanyahu sitting with the president, which is such a wonderful thing. So propaganda is something that we need to watch out for, false propaganda in the end times. So I showed you the video of the false propaganda about the civil rights stuff. Sometimes people can be partly right and wrong about a few things, but the things they're wrong about are very damaging to people. So this movement with Charlie Kirk is a movement, and it can go wrong. You don't have to follow that movement. The conservative movement should be a Christian movement, and if they're no longer a Christian movement, I no longer want to have anything to do with them. So Charlie Kirk had Nick Fuentes, or Tucker Carlson had Nick Fuentes on his show under the pretext of freedom of speech. If I had Nick Fuentes on my show, I would ask him about his anti-Semitism and accuse him of being a dangerous person. If I was to his face, I would call him out for what he is, because that's what I do. I'm a fighter. I don't believe in tolerating evil and tolerating wrong. Nick Fuentes is a college dropout. He dropped out of college. I'm speaking from an educated perspective. Now, people don't like to say this, but I'm a doctor. They don't usually talk about lawyers as doctors. I have a doctorate degree, doctor of jurisprudence. I'm a doctor. Now, I know the law, and so I know the rules. I know how lawyers and how these pundits can sway things. So I have a great advantage over a lot of people and a lot of the TV pundits. I have the same education as a civil rights lawyer. I know the law. So I'm Dr. Van, you can call me, and earned this. Now, the state is going against me. Now, that ought to tell you a lot about my credibility. When the state government goes against you, people in power, then you might be somebody that you ought to listen to. I'm going against their propaganda, their liars. So I'm a doctor. I'm not Nick Fuentes. I'm not a racist. I have a Master of Arts in sociology, Master of Arts from the University of Tennessee in sociology. So I know about how social forces affect human behavior, and I know about propaganda. And I know about how the government and people in government power can rig things. I'm Master of Arts from a great university, and I'm a UT fan. And I've also got a business degree from Tennessee Wesleyan College, Bachelor of Science from Tennessee Wesleyan College. And also, I don't believe everything that any of these schools have taught me. I based what I learned from these schools on a biblical Christian principle. And even some Christian schools don't even teach right, don't even do right. You have to discern for yourself. So I didn't drop out of school. And I have succeeded in everything I've done. I have a basis for my knowledge, and I'm not saying that a lot of people that don't have an education aren't smarter than me. Some of them are. There's some people that are self-educated. So if you're here, and I'm not trying to intimidate people, and you don't have an education, you may be smarter than me. My mother was the smartest person that I know, and she was self-educated. She used to have notebooks that she'd read books and listen to stuff and write out notes and teach herself and find information. She was an interior designer, and she studied and designed stuff at the Brown Squirrel here in Knoxville out west, and studied it and learned interior design. There's a lot to that. It's not as simple as you think, dressing up something pretty. There's all kinds of different designs that you can make depending on your preference. And so she studied all that and knew everything about it. And before she ever got a college education, she did go and get a CQRSD, some kind of interior design certificate that she had to get college credits for. So she did pursue a college education and get partly a certification, but that was after she already knew, was self-taught. And there's a lot of people that are self-taught, but if you have a degree in something, you're self-taught, and you also have academic credentials. But there's even something better than having academic credentials. It's being self-taught and having academic credentials and not going along with the program of what they all tell you to do. Because even though I have formal credentials, which I'm very proud of, it took a lot of money and effort to accomplish those things in order to get that doctorate degree, in order to be called Dr. Van. I went to law school here in Knoxville, pretty much got kicked out of the law school for wrongs that the state done and that they're still continuing to do. I transferred to National School Law, had to sleep out in my van in order to get that legal education, and studied at night, slept in my van two nights a week my last year out in Nashville because I couldn't afford a hotel room in order to get that doctorate degree. I earned that degree. Now the state won't let me use it to make a living, but I'm using it now in order to put out information from an educated perspective, and not just education, because everything they told me I don't believe. I compare that with the Bible and with the way things really are. And also, when I got my business degree, I don't agree with everything they say. In this ethics class right here that I took, ethics, in Introduction to Ethics course syllabus, it was a class in ethics that I took at Tennessee Wesleyan, a Methodist college. Now I'm not. It was a great university. It was in the fall of 1995. It was a 3-hour course in ethics from Tennessee Wesleyan College, and Tennessee Wesleyan is a good college. I'm not running down the college, but I'm just saying that just because you got an education, if you got one and you buy everything that they tell you, you're not an educated person. Because an education ought to tell you how to think. Because in this ethics class that I took in fall of 1995, I still remember this day, we got into the subject of abortion in an ethics class. And ethically, the teacher was teaching us at a Methodist college, a Methodist Christian college, which Tennessee Wesleyan College is a good college. I'm not disagreeing with that, but I'm just saying that in this Methodist Christian college, the professor in ethics presented us with, when we came on the issue of abortion as an ethical issue, her position was that it is unethical to prevent women from controlling their own bodies by saying that, using the analogy of something that they still use today that's completely flawed, that if you're a great, if you woke up to a great violinist that was in your bed and they had blood hooked up to him, and you you had to keep that violinist alive. They were forcing you to, that you had no duty to do that. And that's the same thing as having an abortion, that you ought to be able to do that because you have no obligation to that. You know, and that's not the same thing as having an abortion. For one thing, if you woke up next to a great violinist that they had their blood transfusion hooked up, and if you cut them off, that would die. So you would obligate to help that. You just woke up. You had nothing to do with that. You had something to do with an unborn child, and the flaws in that are you do have that person is part of you. That violinist is completely separate. There's so many flaws in that argument. But that was the ethical argument in the class from a Methodist college. I'm just saying, Tennessee Wesleyan College, I don't know if they still teach that today, but they're wrong in that. From a Methodist college was the belief in abortion on demand. And, you know, I may be educated, and I am very educated, but I don't buy all the education I got. I base that with my worldview that all life is precious, that it is unethical to abort innocent children, and it is against God's moral laws, that there are reasons for abortion. I don't agree with any of them, but as far as making it lawful for somebody else, I don't know that I'd be involved in that. But abortion is the murdering of innocent children. It has a lot to do with demonic worship. So just because you have a great education doesn't mean anything. They can teach you propaganda in law school. They can teach you propaganda in any formalized education you got. So you got to take that formal education, which I have done, and put that with the weight of reality and God's law supreme. So it doesn't really matter about that. So, and I also had a great deal of public service, serving the public. So I'm not a propagandist. When I work for the government, I save lives and property, and I also am better educated than any of these people that lie to you, that put out fake stuff and lie to you. So like, share, and comment, and so just because I'm educated don't mean I buy all this stuff. I learned a lot of stuff, and you can be a Christian construction worker, real educated, know how to build houses, and be able to build a house wonderful. Or you can be an atheist construction, be able to build a house wonderful. But I would trust a Christian builder better because I know that they would try to be honest rather than an atheist, which would maybe not necessarily, and wouldn't build things with the framework of God's eternal goodness and value. And so you can trust what I say because it's from an educated perspective. And I've got more education than people would dream of. Some people have more. And also, even better than that, I have a worldview that is based on the truth. And you can call it a Christian worldview. That just happens to be the truth. So I know better than a lot of these pundits. And also, in thinking about the nation of Israel, I will bless them that bless you and curse them that curse you. And these shall all families of the earth be blessed. In the end times, you're seeing more and more hatred towards the nation of Israel. Scripture warnings about deception in the last days applied broadly, not just to spiritualized, but compass a wide range of falsehood, worldly, political, social, that blur truth and error, targeting all people, especially those who reject God's truth, leading them away from salvation through false teaching and illusions. Believers are warned to love the truth, seek God's word, and rely on the Holy Scripture for discerning and avoiding being swayed. So we have to work against and can be conscientious of the lies and the propaganda of all the lies and deception going on, and especially nowadays. So the Bible warns against listening to false prophets who bring soothing lies, highlighting the importance of discerning the truth messages and not silencing those who speak God's difficult truth. So on this show, I intend to speak the absolute truth about things and not sway propaganda. And some of these big, powerful people lie about stuff. This is Judge Clemmy Jr., I call him, that is for the government and against you. And that's not propaganda, that's the truth. Here's a great propagandist, Tracy Trotz. And this is not propaganda, this is the truth. These are people that were in government official, caused hundreds of drunk drivers, as a result more people were killed, committed fraud by pursuing a fake case. And you paid for liars to present their fake case. This is the reason why it's so important to elect people not based on how the news media puts them out, not based on how they put them out, but not based on how they put them out. Look how they put out me, but based on the truth and what they actually believe. You can see the smiling face here as opposed to how the news media propaganded and pictured me. How state paid media. This is state paid media. Put me as opposed to the person that won. And the other picture is even worse than this. It was a mugshot. So I'm just saying, propaganda is something that you can't just take for granted. You're not going to get the truth. You're going to have to pay attention. You're going to have to look for it. You're going to have to reach out and find it. And that's what this show is about. And I'm the one that leads you there. Look at all the education. And I didn't even buy all the education. Just because they told me something doesn't mean I believed it. I looked and researched and decided if it matched up with reality. So there's a football game today. And remember, the head of this nation is supportive of Mr. Trump. So there is supportive of Netanyahu, Mr. Trump. So there are some very good things to be excited about in the United States of America. And so there's nothing to be greatly concerned about. So I wanted to show you the football game today with Illinois. Go Vols. And like, share, and watch the show. Spread this channel. We're going to look into truth. Go out to scenes where news happens and tell you the truth. Just blatant truth. A lot of it is against people in government power because the truth is they're against you, and I'm just pointing it out, and we need to vote them out of office. And even in this show, and another show with a representative talked about why the bad things happen in the government is because only about 13% of people elect our government officials. There's a huge percentage of people, and maybe you, and I encourage you to vote. We're letting 13% of people decide who runs our government offices. And these 13% are benefited a lot by people that are doing favors in government office. So just because you're not getting specifically benefited by people in government power doesn't mean you won't be harmed by them. And I can tell you right now, you are harmed by people in power in the state of Tennessee. So the main message that I can put out to people is vote. Now they would like for me, the TBI, and I'm sure FBI, and a lot of people are listening to me. I'm a hell of a lot more important than I think I am. People think they're more important than they are. I'm a lot more important than I think that I am. Because I know the TBI and FBI and the city police chief, other police chiefs in other areas, they listen to what I say. And they're waiting for me. They're just waiting for me. They're going to write it down, record it, and play it to me in a court of law. They're waiting for me, and I won't do it, to say that I want to do something violent and trying to propagate some type of violence. I know they are. They're waiting, they're listening. And hello, I'm not going to do that because I don't believe in that. That's not my Christian worldview. My worldview is to put out your lies and your deception and point it out to the public. It's called freedom of speech, protected under the Constitution. Shouldn't be a damn thing you can do about it. Now, not to say that you won't violate the Constitution, do something about it, and step on soldiers' blood. I wouldn't put it past you. You've done it before, but I'm still here, haven't stopped it. Now, I'm not saying I'm all powerful. I pray for God's grace and help to keep me perpetrating the truth and putting it out there, and He very well will if He wants to use me. If He don't, maybe He won't. I don't know. A year from now, I might be worse off. I know I'm very hated by people in government power. My life is in danger, in very bad danger, not from a thug that would rob me a street thug from people in government power are very dangerous to Charles Van Morgan because they hate this show. They hate the show. Jews are in danger because people hate the Jews. People hate people that tell the truth. And they hate Charles Van Morgan. People in government power do. Not all of them, but a lot of them do. I guarantee they do. I'm not deceived. I see it. I feel it. And I know it. But I'm not afraid of them. I trust in God. I trust in God. So I'm taking a huge risk, and I'm doing it through the influence and power of God to put out the truth to people. I believe that it's necessary. This is my place. This is my fight. This is what I do. God will protect me. I hope that he does. If something happens to Charles Van Morgan, don't look at some street thug. Look at people in government power that have done this to me. If something happens, so subscribe to the channel, and even more, subscribe, watch the channel, and that helps spread the message. This is something you won't get anywhere else. I mean, I know what they say about me. I'm some kind of babbling idiot that's nothing, that lies, that's heinous, doesn't care about people. But if you look at the facts, just like I showed you on that police video, the facts support otherwise. My name is Dr. Charles Van Morgan. Excuse me, I earned that. And they won't give me credit for it, but I got it and I'll keep it, and that's my title. Thank you very much. And I'll use that, and also use my Christian faith and Christian foundation to perpetrate, first of all, the gospel of Jesus Christ is more important than anything. But if we don't fight this false propaganda in the government, we're not going to have a First Amendment. We're not going to have a gospel, because we're not going to have the First Amendment to protect the gospel. So this is the kind of people that they're promoting. And I just want to mention this. The football game today, this is who's on the sidelines of the UT chart with the coach at the UT football games. There's a player, Eric Miller. Now the reason why I bring this up, there's a football game today. And this is my show. Under God, I'll bring up what God allows me to bring up and influences me to do. There's a football game today. He'll be on the sidelines of the football. He's a captain. Usually they used to have troopers, but now it's a highfalutin position, so this captain is not letting a trooper do it. He's going to stand out there himself, self-centered, egotistical, and I know I used to work with him. Now the reason why this is important is he shot at a moving car from his patrol car, which is illegal under state law and illegal under THP policy. He got promoted and didn't even get written up for that. Now, they wrote me up for defending my own life. You can write me up all day long. I'm going to defend myself. I've got that God-given right. No state can take that away. That's a God-given right. If the state does, the state's violating God's law. And the state violates God's law a lot under Christian governor. So the reason I bring that up is troopers got shot at the other day by somebody speeding on and that's wrong. Don't shoot at troopers. By somebody that was speeding on I-75, and they shot at Tennessee State troopers. And there's a big deal in the news. They charged him like 20-something crimes. You can look it up, 20-something crimes for shooting while he was speeding at moving trooper cars, which is wrong. That's wrong. Similarly, this trooper shot at a moving car, but he wasn't charged with 20 crimes. He's put on the sidelines of UT football. So if UT loses this bowl game today, in my inference, personally, you don't give this the same credibility I give other stuff, but this is my show. This is my personality. This is information that I want to put out. That's the truth. Don't give this the same weight as everything. This man, Mr. Eric Miller, is a lot responsible for that, because he shot at a moving car, just like the man they put in jail charged with 20 crimes. He didn't get demoted or anything for that. He must know somebody in power, because he gets promoted for that. He's on the sidelines with the players. When you put out the impression that you can do anything you want to do, even violate laws, and get promoted, you put out the impression to football players, younger football players, that you don't have to go out and practice catching footballs. You don't have to lift weights like I did when I was a trooper. I mean, he's not even a very big man, is he? A little bitty flimsy fella. He might need to resort to his gun. I didn't have to do that. I was fast and strong enough to protect myself. I arrested more people than any trooper in the state. One of the most dangerous things you can do. That's just the truth. And every time I was on the sidelines, I presented that image and we won the football game. And now he's on the sideline shooting at moving cars, violating the policy, not getting written up, making it all the way to captain with any significant knowledge, advanced knowledge, and sitting in a classroom that I know of where he learned how to protect the public, learned information to protect the public. It's information to protect the departments and protect the hierarchy. And he is in leadership in the Highway Patrol, putting the impression to the football players that you don't have to do anything to earn your position, that it's given freely to you by the upper echelon. When you present that to football players, they have the impression they don't have to practice, they don't have to go catch, they don't have to do anything to make them able to do their job, that they just get wins that they're handed to them. They don't have to work for them. They don't have to work for rank or for positions. And then when you come up against these other teams that have better state patrols and state police on the sidelines where people have worked for things, and you see some of these troopers for these other state patrol officers, there's some pretty big boys, there's some pretty big men that look like if you went up against them, it would be a big mistake. When if you went up against this guy, you look like you'd have a little party. You could do whatever you want. And a lot of these troopers that don't take care of themselves. So when you present that information to football players, they go out and play football teams that are really prepared, that know you got to win games by earning it. Our state patrol and our state police are capable, and you look at the wrong people, and that's why the Tennessee football team has went straight down in the past few years because of the influence of the Tennessee Highway Patrol. That's my opinion. So if they lose today in front of thousands and thousands of fans, then remove the THP off the sidelines, or correct the THP where they promote people that are for public safety, that earn and deserve their position, so that they can influence the UT football team. That you get here because you're 6'2", 240 pounds, and you protect yourself and you protect the public, not because you're a little boy that has to pull out his gun and shoot people and move in traffic. Just like they charged somebody just the other day, 20 different crimes that shot at troopers. Neither side should do wrong. So thank you all for listening to the show today. Subscribe to the show. Support the show. We're going to work on it every day, try to make it better and better and get out more truthful information. And we enjoy doing this. Thank you all so very much. Reached almost 1.8 million people. And we'll come up with another great show tomorrow. Hopefully, Lord willing, and the creek don't rise. Actually, tomorrow is New Year's Eve. So I'm not sure that we'll be on the air tomorrow. If any news comes up, tune into the show, subscribe, hit the bell icon, because if any news comes up where we can get to it, that's breaking, we'll go live to the scene and not tell you what the pundits tell you, not tell you what the news media and the propagandists. I'll give you a live perspective if any news happens that I can get to. And so get notified from a person that has an education, from a doctor that's unconstrained by the government propagandists. So thank you all so very much for being a part of this. Please help spread the truth. A low budget operation that needs your prayers. Pray for Charles Van Morgan and family, and pray that God will lead, guide, direct my thinking, lead, guide, and direct my decisions, and lead, guide, and direct this broadcast that I put out to the public. I try to be honest and based on what I say on a biblical Christian perspective, and I believe and know that I do. Most of all, I'd like to thank and praise the Lord Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior. Thank God. Thank you all so much for the value of your precious time. Spread the message, spread the channel, support the channel. May God bless you all. And as I always try to remember to say, that's very most important. And this cures all. God loves you. And I do too. Thank you all.